Hola, Poderistas. We are almost at the end of our journey together. This next and final session is all about the power of storytelling. Because without the authors, artists, writers, and musicians who are documenting the Latino experience, our stories would not live on generation after generation. Get ready to meet some of the most inspiring Latina storytellers working today, whether it's on screen, paper, or even an open mic.
Hola, Poderistas, ¿cómo están? Welcome to Latinas Make a Difference Summit 2021, Poder in Action. I'm very excited to be here with you all. Mi nombre es Olga Segura. I'm one of the co-founders of Poderistas. And the next panel, it's called The Power of Storytelling. And we have incredible guests, Paola Mendoza, Gloria Calderón Kellett, and Sara Rodriguez. Let's start with Gloria Calderón Kellett. She's an amazing writer, actress, producer, director, showrunner, and, Paola Mendoza. She's an author. How do you say that in English?
You got it. Author.
Author. Yes, there you go. Writer, director, producer, storyteller, activist, artist. I mean, she's just incredible. And I'm excited to have you here, Paola. Gracias. And Sara Rodriguez, HBO's Senior Vice President in Documentaries Programming. And you've been doing incredible job. You've have like 15 years, 16 years of experience making documentaries and really telling incredible stories. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be talking with all of you incredible women.
I'm so excited to be here. I can't wait to hear what all you brilliant women have to say. Ready to learn from y'all brilliance.
Let's just do it. Let's just jump in.
So guys, whether it's on paper, screen, or an open mic, telling our people's stories and documenting our history has never been so important. In order to change the culture narrative of who we are and how we are represented, not just here in the US, but worldwide, we need to really stay connected to our stories and embrace them and actually own them. So when Latinas and any other community that has been historically misrepresented tell their own stories, we take back our power and ownership of those stories, right? So I want to hear from each one of you. Why is this important, right? Apart from, like, of course, brings us power and it allows us to really tell it in a very authentic way. But why is this important in your own words? Let's start with that.
I can jump in. I mean, there is no true authentic story about us without us, honestly. And we can tell the difference when we're watching something that's not authored or has a team that is authentic or understands the culture of the story that they're telling. And so I think it's important because we want to do good work. Audiences can tell the difference. We can tell the difference. And, I think it's crucial.
Yeah, same. I feel like, so many of the reasons why I'm sitting in this chair is because of television. I really truly believe, had Ricky Ricardo not been on television, that my parents would not, who were children, would not have been able to come here for Operation Pedro Pan. I think that the reason why in 1960 to 1962, America was like, okay, we'll open our arms to these Cuban children, was because they knew a Cuban on their television screen that was funny and sang and was great. So they're like, oh, Cuban kids want to come in? Cool, right? So I can just see that the line between the cognitive dissonance of like, I don't know anybody, to, oh, I do know somebody from that community. They were on my TV. to them coming in to then seeing now how Latinos are portrayed on TV and how we treat people at the border and how different it is now than it was when my parents came here. So I just feel this sense of responsibility because I love my community. I love it. I feel like my parents made me believe that growing up Cuban was a superpower, that we had it better than everybody else. And pobrecito no tienen familia, you know, like they didn't have family like our family, pobrecito, because I grew up in Oregon too, where it was real white. And all the white people would come over to our birthday parties and be like, there's 100 people here. We're like, yeah, that's how we do, you know? I remember when I went to a friend's birthday party and she had like 6 girls and I was like, I know, ya no tiene. Like, it's just a different thing, right? So to not see that celebrated, to see again and again an experience that I don't understand or know, we're being robbed of telling the totality of who we are when we're only seen through this lens. So to be able to right that wrong by writing, it's like the most powerful pen. It's really makes me feel like I can celebrate my community and tell the stories in a way that I know them to be. Now, my experience is we're not a monolith. My experiences aren't everyone's experience, but at least one means that there can be 5, that there can be 10, that there can be 20, you know, and it grows. So I've just seen the power of it in my own life. I've seen how it helped my parents come here and have a very different experience than what we're seeing now. And we have to change that.
Yes, I would agree with everything that's been said. And from a personal standpoint, what I have spent, at first I would say maybe unconsciously when I was first starting off, graduated from my master's program, but then obviously became very conscious, and now it is my North Star, and that is that the stories that I tell from our community are stories that are filled with dignity and filled with love and filled with flaws. I think and when I say flaws, I mean that allows the leads of my stories to be flawed, because I do think that allowing us to be flawed individuals is allowing us to be full human beings. And I think that that is critical. And the love and the dignity that comes within the stories that I'm telling. And that doesn't mean that I'm telling love stories. What that means is that the stories that I'm telling, which in reality most of the times are very difficult, are embedded with love, are filled with love. They're filled with dignity. My characters are going through difficult circumstances, whether they're fiction or whether they're real life individuals. They're going through different difficult circumstances, but they still have their dignity and that is because what we have seen in this country do to Latinos and Latinas and across the board, anyone that wasn't white or male or straight, is strip them of their dignity, is take away their humanity. Because when society, when this country allowed humanity to be stripped, that's when it also allowed for people's rights to be violated, their basic human rights to be violated. So my role as an artist in any avenue that I'm exploring is to bring back dignity, bring back love, bring back truthfulness, because that's how I feel about my community. That's how I feel about my family. That's how I feel about my mother. And ultimately, that's how I feel about myself. And I want others to feel that way about us as well.
Thank you. And each one of you, it's in your own way, have really supported and encouraged the authenticity of this storytelling. Each one of you in you know, now at the beginning of their career, but you've been like really leaders of that. And so what role can a Latina play every day? What are some tangible things that they can do in order to support their community? Because this is not just like, I mean, we're so lucky that you guys have we all are in a position of power, right? To really try to we're privileged, you know, we're like try to do and change that and be authentic. But I think we need to encourage like every Latina that they are like in their own community, they can do something. You don't have to be in a, you know, a director in a show. You can like do your own story in your own community, in your own like state, in your like, so what are some of the things that you will recommend to these Latinas that are seeing us? I don't know, like maybe at the beginning of the career.
I don't think it should all be on us, but I do think that it is everyone's responsibility to help our community, right? And I think one tangible thing we can do is not just, offer mentorship, but offer advocacy, because, our opportunities should be our opportunities. And there's a narrative that only people with experience get an opportunity, but when you vouch for someone, people will take a chance on them. And so it's important that we lift up as we rise.
Absolutely. I think also you don't have to do it alone. You can partner up. I felt the most seen in my journey as a writer when I was on staff with the first time I was staffed with another Latina was Tanya Saracho. That was the first time I was ever in a room with another Latina. And having that sisterhood that formed in the bowels of Disney, we were like in a basement in Disney, that empowered me in a way I had never been empowered in any other time in my career. And then we'd have lunch, and then there'd be 5 of us, and then there'd be 6 of us, and then there'd be 10 of us. And that is what fuels so much of there being more. And I think that's also something that, America and Eva and Zoe, all of them are so supportive in terms of understanding, oh, there's a power in me doing it, but there's also, interestingly, it's been really a sisterhood, right? It's been the women who have really come together and said, let's hunter gather this thing. Let's do this. Like, there's safety in numbers. Let's all show them that together, which is really the mission of Poderista too, that we can come together and we are so powerful together. So you don't have to do it alone. That's the one thing in the bubble. It's something I talked to the Untitled Latinx Project about, the showrunners group of women Latinas that I'm a part of, is that, we did a Dear Hollywood letter, Olga, that you can talk about if you want. Yeah. Where we had so many people coming to us saying, we want to help, we don't know what to do. And so we put together this Dear Hollywood letter, and nobody cared, y'all. Nobody cared. Nobody reached out to us. No networks were like, what can we do? Oh my God, thank you. Nothing. So we are now following up with them. But the difference is we don't have the Latina stronghold. We don't have the Shonda Rhimes yet. We don't have the Oprah Winfrey yet.
There isn't that. And there isn't that.
So we're all still trying to get shows made. You know what I mean? Like, we all still have like our day job. I have one person that works for me, not 15 yet, right? Like, I hope to build to that. But because we don't have that infrastructure, it makes our momentum slower, because we haven't been able to have a person whose designated job it is to call up all those studios and say, these women will sit down with you and go through this list because we want to hold you accountable.
So I'm curious, from your perspective, we're the fastest growing demographic. What do you feel on the scripted side is what's missing? What is? I'm sorry, I don't mean to hijack here.
No, you can please. This is such an important conversation. I don't know. And I want to get to the bottom of what it is. I want to sit down, because I was like, I'll sit down with them and be like, okay, why? Because for me, it's everybody when it's buying season. And I know that now buying season is going away. And it used to always be like the fall when you would traditionally go and pitch your show. There's always very splashy, CBS buys 4 Latino shows. And you're like, oh, great. And then none of those go to pilot or get made. So that tells me, if you are really serious about having a Latino show on your network and you're buying 4, then next year you better buy 20. Right?
Right.
Like, from a numbers perspective, if you really are trying to do this work, if you really care, studios, about doing this work, and 4 is not enough, then next year you better buy more.
Yeah, and not only that, then just buy more and then allocate some funds for P&A. So actually people get to know that there is a Latino show on air, because there's no publicity. There's no like,
I could go on and on. The publicity, I mean, I could talk ad nauseum about, Tanya and I talked about this all the time, because we had Vida and we felt like we were pregnant at the same time. Saracho and I, it's like she had Vida, I had One Day at a Time. they're like, oh, these are two little underdog shows that aren't going to make a splash. And then all of a sudden, 100% of Rotten Tomatoes, she's 100% Rotten Tomatoes. We're like, oh, our babies are doing so good. Oh, this is going to be amazing. But then where are we anywhere? You know, where are we when, I mean, people can't believe it, but when we were trying to book talk shows, the Today Show, any morning talk show, any afternoon talk show, any evening talk show passed on Rita Moreno, they were like, no, thanks. We don't want to see them. So it's not only who gets to make it, but then who gets to have the microphone to promote it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And then once the Today Show, which is I watch every morning, so I was devastated when the Today Show said no to us, right?
No, but it means like, I think it means that there has to be more in every direction, right? Like there has to be more on the news side. There has to be more in the decision maker side. There has to be more in the marketing side, because it's those people that are the people that will see value.
Yeah. Publicity is a big one. I mean, I was just going to say, like, you know, Tanya and Gloria, you know, it's like, it's massive.
Yes.
You know, like, otherwise, who knows that you are actually on air? Like, you know, it's hard. But I agree with Gloria. There's so many things that, you know, we can go on and on and on and on. And I think that, I mean, I believe that sisterhood and what we are, like having this conversation, seeing each other, like exchanging what are like our difficulties, and trying to really support and encourage each other. And I think that, I mean, that's everything. And that can be transmitted to other Latinas in their own communities, right?
I do think also, to that vein, kind of to what you asked earlier, Olga, as well, I think that everything that everyone is saying obviously is absolutely 100% correct. And I also think, in addition to, it's also, we as a community, we as the Latinx community, really also need to support and / invest. And when I say invest, I don't mean actually invest in the product, but invest our time, invest our eyeballs, invest our heart into art, shows, stories, books, docs that are being created by our community, because most of the time they are also for our community, by and for our community. And it's incredibly important. And it's also very empowering, and it's very nurturing, and it builds community. And it does all of those things that that ultimately makes us happy in the long run. But I do think that we also have to put the responsibility on ourselves, as well as the systematic problems that exist need to be shouted out, shone a light on, and need to change. But we also can demand things when we put our dollars and our eyeballs in the places that it is that we actually want the stories to be telling.
Yeah, and I want to,
Absolutely.
and I want to talk about, you know, Paola and Gloria, you both have written stories and examples of like who we are, like very well, like very, very well. Like Justina Machado's character, there's like so many like times I get goosebumps just like saying it, you know, like there's so many times that just like, oh yes, I see myself. Oh yes, I see myself again, you know, with Entre Nos, Paola, with your movie Entre Nos, that is so close to your heart, and it's like it's based in a true story. You know, these stories are what we need, what my daughter needs, you know, who's a Mexican American and is going to see herself, and she needs to see this. So I want our audience to know a little bit about that. And Sara, if you can talk a little bit after, you as a leader in documentaries, you know, when you are programming one documentary, like what is your perspective like, and how to choose that, you know, and push it, and because we need it. You are a programmer now in one of the most important, you know, stream platforms, HBO. So if you guys can talk a little bit that, so our audience can get to know your work and know what you're doing, that'll be great.
Well, for me, it was just about really showing I have a great family. I know everyone doesn't have a great family, but mine is really great. So I wanted to show what mine looked like, and hopefully, you know, Norman Lear talks a lot about appealing to our common humanity, which is when stories are done well. Like I would love hearing from Latino from Latinos watching and being like, oh my God, I don't know why I started crying when I saw the Bustelo on the counter. Like just seeing, I've never seen Bustelo on a counter before, or a cafetera, or a, you know, like whatever the thing was, like popes everywhere, crosses everywhere, you know. Seeing yourself represented in some way, it's like, I think for a lot of people, they were emotional in a way that they didn't expect, because they're just so, it was the realization that, oh my gosh, I've been so starved of seeing myself, that when I saw myself for the first time, it's like, it was emotional. It kind of took them off guard. And for me, it was really showing the complexity of relationships between mothers and daughters, and showing what a strong woman and mother who was trying to do her best in a world that was navigated. Like, we had built in to the premise of the show the reality of my life, which is my mother is old school Latina, came from Cuba, goes to church every Sunday. We have me who's like, I'll go on the 4 days that I gotta go, you know, and I'm open to, I'm very liberal. And then my daughter who's like a lefty, like pride, and you know, she's the other way. So I had that built in to the show. We had those conversations. So here's three people that love each other, that could not see the world more differently. And me navigating between like, oh, that's a good point. No, but I do like this, you know, and like having I feel constantly like I'm at this crossroads of really everybody's kind of right. Everybody gets to be right, and everyone gets to be wrong, and everyone gets to come together in love and support. And I a little bit feel like it's kind of what's wrong with the country right now. We've stopped talking and fighting. It's good to fight. It's good to get to the bottom of like, here's why I think that's ridiculous, and XYZ. And it's like, okay, well, I can see why you think that, because when you love each other, you have to have those conversations, or else you part ways. So I was having those conversations in my household anyway. So to be able to have them on TV through the lens of Rita Moreno, Justina Machado, and Isabella Gomez was really healing, because sometimes I could have the conversation in real life and it worked and I put it on the show. Sometimes I'd have it on the show and my mother would watch and go, now I understand. I understand now, you know? So that was incredibly moving, like all of the therapy stuff, all of the antidepressant stuff. My mom was like, you know what, but I'm such a good mother, but I did everything right, but you're Cuban, you know? It's like, yes, I understand. Cuban blood does not cure anxiety. In fact, makes it worse. I'm going to say there's intergenerational trauma that we can get into. Mommy, she's never going to look at that. She's never going to look at the intergeneration. She's never going to look at why she can't talk about Cuba 60 years later without bursting into tears, and how maybe we should look at that. Never going to look at it. And that's okay. That's her journey. But to be able to have those on TV in a funny way, in a loving way, was so just glorious to be able to do it. And then to have people reach out and go, oh my God, that's my abuela, or that's my mom. And then people from other communities, a lot of people just saw an immigrant experience, like, oh my God, my Chinese mom is exactly like Lydia on the show. And that's like, oh, the common humanity, it's working. And we all get to come together and laugh and have some hard conversations that often are, you know, come from real life. That's what was so beautiful also about having a writer's room of Latinos and LGBTQ people to fill in and really make it feel that texture of reality that we're trying to have.
I think it's very similar in that I started Entre Nos, I started writing Entre Nos, and even Sanctuary as well, my novel, to celebrate my mom. I grew up a single mom in really difficult circumstances, and I saw in my community women that were like my mom, who were making miracles happen every day, making magic out of nothing every day, and raise children off of that magic and off of those miracles. And I love my mother, and I think she's extraordinary, and I think she literally succeeded at something when everything around her was making her fail. But my mom wasn't the only one. And when I became an artist and I started looking to the stories around me, seeing the stories that were being told, I didn't see my mother. I didn't see the community of women from my neighborhood anywhere. And I felt first mad, and then I felt really sad because I thought it was just such a huge loss for those that weren't being reflected, because the power of reflection is so incredibly impactful, but also a loss for others that they didn't know this was happening, that this community was thriving and living and doing incredible things for this country. And I felt sad for them. And so the story of Entre Nos is really shining a light on the unsung heroes of America. It is telling the story of the women whom you walk by every day and you literally don't see because you think that they're not important. And yet they are critically important, as this pandemic has shown, quote unquote. Now we know that they're essential workers, but they are foundational to the fabric of the United States, to moving this country forward, both culturally and economically, but also emotionally and towards the future. Like, you know, with my mother, I immigrated to this huge country. I was homeless, on welfare, grew up in public housing, and then just one life later, half life, because I'm not yet dead, I still have a very long life to live, have accomplished quite a lot in when you look at the journey of being homeless to where I am now. And that is not necessarily just my doing, that is the doing of my mother. And so the stories of Entre Nos, the stories of Sanctuary, are a celebration of these women, are showing these women how I see them, how I see my mother. And I love the fact that I create art really always in reflection and in honor of my mother in one shape or form of another. Because I feel that as a child of an immigrant, we carry, all immigrants, I think this is across the board, a responsibility on our shoulders of, you know, our parents gave up so much to be here, and how do I ever repay them? Even though they don't ask for it, my mother's never asked for it, but how do I repay them for all of their sacrifices? And so we could talk about this in therapy, I'm sure, but the way that I've found comfort and love and joy in quote unquote repaying my mother is in honoring my mother. And I think that in doing so, I'm also hopefully doing that with so many other women that need to have a light shone on them, because they are our unsung heroes.
Beautifully put.
Yeah.
Well put.
I love your book, Sanctuary. If you haven't read it, go buy it right now. It's so good. I finished it in 3 days. Anyway, we're running out of time, Sara, but if you can tell us what is the process of you and the inspiration of
Yeah. Well, it's funny because as you're talking about seeing yourself, like I had 2 VHS movies as a kid. One was Stand and Deliver, and the other one was La Bamba. Now, I'm not a Mexican kid from LA. Was a Puerto Rican kid from Queens, but it was like, this is kind of like my family, right? And I think all of us can relate to like the yearning to see something that resembles their family, even if it's not exact. And so I think about that a lot as we're looking for stories, as we're getting pitches. And I think the biggest challenge that we have is just that there's not enough, right? There's not enough to showcase the 360 shades that we are, and all the various experience that we have. And I think that on our side, you know, the great thing that on the HBO Max side is they created this platform called Palante that helps elevate those stories. And so we're not going to find ourselves in a situation where a film gets put on the air and doesn't have the proper marketing and is not targeting our audience, is not getting the love and care that it deserves. And so, I mean, my biggest challenge and my mission is to find more of those stories and make sure that we put them on the air, because I think the documentary side, and Paola probably knows this more than anybody, you know, when we are, there's a lot of crisis happening in our communities. And on the doc side, you rush to the crisis because you want to make change happen quickly. You want to document what's happening quickly. And I think that those stories are of the utmost importance. We need them. But we also need another array of different kinds of stories that also show the joy and varied experiences that we all have in this country.
Yeah, so important. So we are We are running out of time, actually. So, before we go, with like one sentence, one word, like real fast, what would be a recommendation that you do like to a Latina? If you're talking to a Latina like right now, what will be like a word or a sentence that will inspire to really not be afraid to tell, like to tell their own story? And I think that a lot of Latinas, maybe sometimes, depending where you are seeing us, you know, maybe their struggles, the community is it's all white, or, you know, there's not enough Latinas where you can see, or you can build a sisterhood or a community. So I think it's important just to maybe empower some of us, not empower, like give them a word or a sentence that it will inspire and affirm that it's good.
I would say no matter where you are in your life, you belong in the room that you're in. And don't question that you don't belong there. You belong there, and you belong in all rooms.
I would say, if you don't see it, be it so someone else can see it.
I would say that we need them, we need them, we need them, and that to come to every space as your true, authentic self.
Amazing. This is the power of storytelling. Thank you so much for being with us. And please go to poderistas.org to see more of what's going to be happening in these days. And thank you so much, Paola, Sara, and Gloria. Thank you. Muchas gracias.
That's it.
Gracias a ti. Besitos y abrazos.
Bye.
Besito.
We've come to the end of this incredible 3-day summit. I hope you've enjoyed every single minute of it. Now, to wrap things up, I'm handing this off to the incredible America Ferrera, one of the founders of Poderistas. And I personally want to say thank you all for taking this journey with me this weekend. It has been an honor and a privilege to serve as your host, get to know you, our experts, and of course, our sponsors. America, hola.
Hi, everyone. We made it. We've come to the finale of this powerful second annual Latinas Make a Difference Summit. And it was all because of you, your poder, and your love of self and community. Thank you for joining us and for making this year's summit such a huge, powerful success. With so many great conversations happening throughout the weekend, chances are you couldn't tune into everything, but fear not. If you missed anything, or you simply want to watch a segment that you loved all over again, you can find all the summit panels and combos on our Poderistas YouTube channel. So be sure to check that out. Just like we couldn't have done this without you, we couldn't have done it without our experts, speakers, panelists, and of course, our sponsors. So a special thank you goes out to each of them, especially Procter & Gamble, AARP, Parsons Entrepreneur Academy, and Warner Media. Your support not only made this summit possible, it powered it. Mil gracias. This is only the beginning, so make sure you signed up to receive emails and alerts from Poderistas so you can stay in the know about all of the upcoming events and initiatives we have. Thank you again for joining us for this empowering summit. We are so proud of this community and of this movement. We are so glad you're a part of it.